what are the main ideas and feelings that the story is about? So there's something about loss, there's something about trauma, there's something about identities, there's something about family and family histories and ancestrality, which obviously that resonated a lot with me. And Lorna, she embodies members of her family, her parents, her grandparents, other characters who are relevant for the story. So obviously that brings back memories, that brings all kinds of layers and meanings. So one of the main goals is, how do we portray all of these things in a way that feels authentic, feels poignant, but at the same time is safe for her well-being, because we are touching upon, things that can be triggering, that can be quite emotional. So how can you sustain for the performer and for the audience a 1-hour show that touches upon very sensitive topics in a way that doesn't feel too casual or too heavy? So it's about finding the right balance, I think. So in that sense, having, I guess, an external or a more distant perspective over the more culturally specific things, I think it helps, because I can engage with some of it from my own experience, but at the same time, I can detach myself and have, I guess, a differentiated point of view to then bring onto the story, onto the performance. Both myself and Lorna, we are PhD drama students, researchers here at Queen Mary, and both our research projects touch upon topics like mental health, theater, community. So I feel like there was a syntony between us, and there was this, ongoing open idea of potentially collaborating one day. So I feel like when the Suitcase project emerged was the perfect opportunity to actually come together and do this. I love directing. She had this amazing story she wanted to tell and she had written. So it just felt like a combination of intentions and desires coming together. The first thing is, I wanted to understand and learn what the story was and how Lorna was envisioning, how she wanted to tell this story. I knew right away that this was a very personal story, autobiographical even. So obviously it touched upon very sensitive fibers of her being, of her history, as a woman, as a Cypriot, as a British person. And so that meant that I had to be very open to receiving all that, to then see how can I enhance this, how can I give an input that will actually make the material that already exists better. So I think last year we started working together. So there was a script, but there was a lot of things that were not completely decided. So there was a lot of room for us to play around and create, and that was really fun. And obviously it's still the case. So the project is evolving and emerging as we go. So for me, so that was the first thing, understanding. And then obviously, how can I connect with some of the topics? So I'm not Cypriot, I don't speak Greek. So how can I relate to this story, to the themes and subjects that we are trying to tell? And obviously, yes, because I have my own migrant experience. So then it was also about finding the commonalities within difference, so that we can sort of have the sort of serendipity between performer and director. Some of the themes that I was very personally interested, the geopolitics. So how do you connect the local politics and realities and stories and identities and conflicts with wider situations like the Cold War, or the situation, the history of Cyprus, and all of these nations that used Cyprus as a proxy for their own interests. So this is something that I'm interested in, because on the big scale, there are these geopolitical narratives, but down the line, they affect people's lives, real people's lives. So that conversation, connection between the big picture and the lived lives of communities and individuals is something that I'm very keen on exploring. One of the things that I've noticed is that Lorna had been working on this for a long time. It was part of her PhD research. It was part of her own lived history and story. So then I knew I had to be very careful and sensitive approaching, but also I felt like she needed a companion. She needed someone to be there, to observe what she was doing, to be in the room, and then be able to give some feedback and directions to move forward, to build upon that. So, and that in itself, I think it is challenging. Not in the sense of, oh my God, so difficult, but because it is a task that needs to be, thought through and felt through. And we did do that. Another aspect which I think for me was challenging is that obviously I don't speak the language. So there is a question of translation. I wish I did speak. I am learning as we go. So maybe at the end of this project or this version of the project, my Greek will have very much improved, my knowledge of the Greek Cypriot language. I guess another challenge is that I never been to Cyprus yet. And I would very much like to. So learning about Cyprus, it's like the challenge brings an opportunity. That's how I see it. Now, I think in Chinese Mandarin, the word crisis has two meanings. You can see it as, oh my God, a dramatic problem, things that need to be solved, or you can see it as a window of opportunity. So I like to see crisis in its etymology as such. So it was an opportunity. The other thing is the audience engagement, because I think from the start, Lorna wanted to have a participation or the audience to participate in the performance. So there were questions of like, how do we best do that? How do we bring them in? Because a lot of people are not used to, or they don't like to come on stage. It's like, I like to sit and watch a play and that's it. Don't put me on the spotlight. And then other people like myself were very keen to jump on stage, even if we're not asked to. So there's a question of how do we open up the invitation for people to come in a natural, organic way, and in a way that works for the world of the play, for the dramaturgy of the play. So there were dancing scenes, there were playing in the street scenes. Last year we had balloons, which sort of represented this kind of childhood, colorful dreams aspect of the play, but it was also a token that Lorna gave to every audience member in the beginning. So that established a bit of a tacit, implicit contract of you're entering this world, my Famagusta. Here is a present, here's your gift, the gift of theater. And then later, there was a point where those balloons came on stage. So it was kind of like building on those small things, but they matter. And I think we did a good job. We'll see if the balloons remain in this version, but I think thinking about the audience and thinking about theater as an encounter, a gathering, a ritual even, right? That we can come in, live things through and with the performer, and maybe at the end come out different, moved, feeling things. So as a director, that's something that I'm really keen on, creating atmospheres and rituals that allow us to experience that. We can see two types of audiences, at least. On the one hand, members of the Cypriot Greek Turkish community in London that will know some of the history of the collective history, the collective trauma that we are talking about in the play, although each person will have their own experience and understanding of that. So a big part of doing the play is about insightful conversations that can emerge during and after the play or around the play. So I think for them, the play, the songs, the bits that will be in Greek or in Cypriot dialect will resonate differently. But even, and on the other hand, you're going to have people who don't have that background or that heritage necessarily, but they will, I think, resonate or relate to a lot of the themes that we're talking about. Growing up, adverse childhood experiences, or if you're a migrant or a refugee, the experience of, being part of a diaspora, having to leave your home and rebuild your life somewhere else with all the challenges that entails. That's something that I can relate to, and I know that a lot of people can too. And even if you don't have that experience, you're just born and raised in one country, or London or UK or England, I still think that you will get something out of this play by empathy, by, just feeling what the story is speaking to you. So I think there's something for each type of audience in this show, and I hope we can get this across. And just to finish from my own experience, so I grew up in Brazil, in a place called Ubatuba, which is a beach town, paradise, beautiful place. So I have those idyllic childhood memories that Lorna also had in a different way, but I can really relate to that. And then at some point, my family, for local political reasons, we had to move, or we decided to move and go to Spain. We were kind of pushed to Spain, and then later I moved to London. So obviously I have these, various narratives of loss, of paradise lost, of my home, which will never be the same, and having to rebuild a new home, a new community, make new friends, learn new languages. So for me, this feels very close to my own experience, and very personal as well. So I hope we can share some of that proximity, that closeness, that intimacy, that care with the audiences. So yeah, come and see us at the Camden Fringe Festival in August 2024.